Alhamdulillah, and welcome to another episode of Dogtor Fantasy Football. I am your host, the Dogtor, and today we're going to be talking about rankings for the rest of the season, kind of like a power rankings, I guess you could say. And then I'll also go through each and every team and how they look for this week, what fantasy players can expect out of their teams heading into certain matchups. I'll talk about, the defenses on the other side. I might have to refresh my memory on some of them, so it might be a bit more sloppy this episode because I'm not exactly sure what kind of off-season changes have been made to some of these teams, how their defenses look now. So, yeah. And with that, we can get started right away. So I have in front of me, as usual, my visual companions. Here's my list for the rankings for the rest of the season. Starting off with quarterbacks in the QB1 tier, we have Josh Allen. QB1 for last week, 31.2 fantasy points. As you can see, there's an arrow pointing both to the left and right, meaning he did not move from his original position. Yeah, I don't think I really need to talk much about Josh Allen. You'll notice in the top four, it's all running backs, really, that are pretending to be quarterbacks. So, number 2, we have Lamar Jackson, QB5 last week with 25.1 fantasy points per game. Devontae Adams, I believe, just recently, I think a few hours before the recording of this video, came out and said that Lamar Jackson is the best ball carrier he's ever seen, meaning he literally called him the best running back of all time. Devontae Adams called Lamar Jackson the greatest running back of all time. That should tell you more than enough about what it is this guy does. Next, we have Anthony Richardson, QB4, 27.1 fantasy points per game. I'll probably stop reading out the fantasy points per game. You can just look on this companion if you're watching the video. If you're just listening to me in the car, it really isn't that important how many fantasy points per game they get. All you really need to know is where they finished last week. Anthony Richardson, as you can see, denoted by a single arrow, went up within his tier but did not move tiers. Obviously, he was already a QB1. I think I had him at number 6 last week. Yeah, same as the other two. He's going to get a lot of points running. QB3 for last week, and number 4 on my rankings list is Jaden Daniels. He has 2 upward arrows, meaning that he moved up tiers. He was previously 14th on my ranking. I wanted to see how his passing game looked. I guess it didn't really matter because his passing game didn't look good. He's not a quarterback like the other 3. He's a running back. And his running is as good as everyone said it is. He had the same amount of carries as Lamar Jackson, just less yards, which tracks with what he did in college last year. So he's going to be an easy top 10 finish every week with the amount he runs. He reminds me a lot of Justin Fields when he was exploding 2 years ago. Number 5, we have Jalen Hurts. He was number 3 last week, but he's taking a dip. He was QB 10 finish on the week. The thing with Jalen Hurts is last year what made him so dangerous and such a weapon in fantasy was the amount of tush-push touchdowns the Eagles were getting at the line. I think from the game that I saw, they tried to convert on 4 tush-pushes and only converted on one of them using a fake out and getting a flag. But every time they actually tried to convert on the tush-push, they failed. So with that weapon out of the Eagles' arsenal, look for Jalen Hurts to take a hit in his output every week. I'm not expecting the kind of scoring that he had last year or the year before. Hurts is going to hurt this year. Number 6, I have CJ Stroud. the first person on this list that's actually a good quarterback. I guess Jalen Hurts is also a good quarterback, but CJ Stroud is so far the best actual quarterback on this list. QB 8 from last week, 18.7 fantasy points per game, brings him up a little bit from his original ranking, which I think was 8. Don't quote me on that. It might have been 7. No, Patrick Mahomes was 7. It was 8. He looks really, really solid. He is a very polished quarterback. He's not going to get you a lot of points from running. Obviously, he doesn't run too much. So, he's going to get you points just from getting touchdowns and being a great quarterback, kind of like Patrick Mahomes. Number 7, Patrick Mahomes. Like I just said, he's an incredible passer. Patrick Mahomes can run too, but tends not to want to. He doesn't do it unless it's a last resort, which makes him much different from the first 4 quarterbacks, right? They run as a first resort, and they barely ever actually do their reads and look to pass. Patrick Mahomes will only run as a last resort, but he can run. He was QB 14 on the week, which was pretty low, all things considered, but he's going to keep getting touchdowns. He's going to have a good floor of points. So I think, over the course of the season, as other quarterbacks have their bad weeks and their good weeks, Patrick Mahomes is sure to rise. Not everyone has the kind of floor that Patrick Mahomes has without running, and only the first 4 quarterbacks we've already mentioned are real running backs, so nobody else is running that much that they have a high floor. Patrick Mahomes probably has the best floor from just a passing game standpoint as far as fantasy output goes. So, he's staying at 7 from where I had him in my initial ranking. Number 8, I have Dak Prescott. He was QB 22 last week. He's going actually up in this ranking. Obviously, the Jordan Love injury has a lot to do with that. Some other, people have dropped as well, like Justin Herbert. The thing about Dak Prescott is that he actually played really well last week. And the reason he's QB 22 over that week is not due to how he played, but more so how easily the Cowboys dominated the Browns. Kind of shocking, actually, but their offense was so bad that the defense was just constantly on the field. Cowboys took a very early lead, never looked back. There was no reason for Dak Prescott to get involved to that level, so they kept their game script to just a running game, which makes sense for a Cowboys team that's dominating the Browns. So you don't want to get Dak Prescott hurt when Myles Garrett is on the other side trying to hurt him. Yeah, I wouldn't take too much stock in his finish from last week. He's still a top-tier option for fantasy. Number 9, I have Kyler Murray. He's like the other 4 quarterbacks where he really is just looking to run. He's just much worse at it. Tiny man, impy, if you will. He was QB 15 finish last week, 14.2 fantasy points per game. So pretty solid. He actually takes a step up here, but as I mentioned, the Jordan Love injury has a big part in that. Justin Herbert went down in my rankings. So I'm not any higher or lower on Kyler Murray than I initially was. I do think Dak Prescott officially is the better option, but not any higher or lower on Kyler Murray. He just moves up because some other people moved down. Joe Burrow, number 10. He's another one that moved down. Forgot about him. QB 29 from last week, meaning he was one of the absolute worst quarterbacks for fantasy. Yeah, so I saw some videos from that game on the sidelines where it seemed like he was really hurting his, he kept stretching out his wrist, kept playing with his wrist, which I believe is the exact same injury that plagued him last year. So if that's not any better this year, that's a little bit odd. It's been a whole year. If he still has the same nagging issues, then we may never see the Joe Burrow that was the second best quarterback in the league ever again. So he could be dropping even further than this. If we're getting last year Joe Burrow again, he's unplayable. But I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say it was first game jitters. The Bengals, all of the years that I've watched the NFL, well, ever since the Bengals lost to the Super Bowl against my Rams, every year after that, I've seen them look horrible in the first game of the season, only to bounce back as the games went on. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but if Joe Burrow is still dealing with wrist issues, oof. Number 11, going into the QB2 tier, I have Baker Mayfield. Obviously, he was not ranked, and now he is ranked at the very top of QB2. I mean, I knew he was a mid quarterback that could get the job done. But, man, he was good. He was good last week. Granted, it was against the Commanders, I believe, and they don't have a defense. So, take it with a grain of salt, obviously, but he was the QB2 finish last week, and he's not a runner like the rest of these fucking losers. Yeah, so I'm high on Baker Mayfield because he is just solid. He's just a solid quarterback, and the rest of the people that I'm about to go through, I couldn't trust them as far as I can throw them. I mean, they all disappointed so heavily that how can you and have maybe also a history of disappointing that I couldn't trust them over what I saw out of Baker Mayfield. Now I know that Baker Mayfield of last week is not the Baker Mayfield we should expect for the rest of the season, but I underrated him to begin with compared to his finish last year. And for him to show that he's that guy and continue just playing well, there's no reason to continue to doubt him. Number 12, I have Jordan Love. Despite, going to miss the next 3 games, he was QB 11 last week, and these other guys suck so bad that he'll still probably finish in front of them. Number 13, Kirk Cousins. The dude is afraid to really have any sort of movement or agility or mobility. I think he's still PTSD from his Achilles tear. QB 28 finish from last season. He's staying where he was at rank 13 for last week, and he's staying where he was at rank 13. I don't like Kirk Cousins after what I saw in game 1. He doesn't look any better than Desmond Ridder for the Falcons, which is concerning to say the least. I actually kind of hope we can see Michael Penix, because if that's the Kirk Cousins that we're going to get for the rest of the season, I would much rather the Falcons roll out Penix because he is awesome. Number 14, I have Brock Purdy. He was QB 25 last week. Another one where the game script was just in the 49ers' favor. They were dominating the Jets from start to finish, so no reason for Purdy to really get all that involved. I have him staying at his rank from last week. He's going to have games like this where the 49ers are so ahead that it's all running back play, and he's going to have games where the 49ers are actually challenged, and he's going to blow up for points because he just has to get the ball into Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk's hands, and they can do the rest. Number 15, I have Justin Herbert, obviously the biggest drop from last week. He was ranked 9, I believe. He is now 15. He was QB 24 from last week. He played a mid defense and did horribly. I mean, he got 10.4 fantasy points as a quarterback against a mid defense. Imagine what happens against good defenses. In fact, let's see who they're playing this coming week. They are going to be playing... That's last week. The Panthers. Okay. Yeah, so I guess we'll get a good sense of really what the Chargers look like. The Panthers are an awful team, so that'll tell us everything we need to know, I think, about who the Chargers are, because if they can't perform well against the Panthers, sell all of your Chargers stock. Number 16, we have Jared Goff. He was the QB 18 finish from last week. He's moving down just 1 rank. I don't know. He's just not that good. He's like a lower mid quarterback. He just has such an incredible team around him. I mean, an awesome O-line, great weapons. But his entire fantasy output potential is based on touchdowns. So, next week they're playing the Buccaneers, or this week I should say, they're playing the Buccaneers, which he should be getting huge points on the Buccaneers. They don't have a defense. From what I've read, all of their secondary is injured. So should be, a huge game for Jared Goff. We'll see. Number 17, I have Tua Tagovailoa. He comes up just 2 spots to get ranked 17, despite being the QB9 finish for last week. Like I said, this is Tua, right? He's going to have one game where he's absent and loses you a week. He's going to have one game where he's absolutely solid. It's just what you come to expect. I don't think he'll ever probably get a QB2, like a mid QB2 tier finish. I'm sure he'll get like a not playable or QB1 finish time in and time out. So just expect waves with this guy. Number 18, we have Derek Carr. I'm bringing him up here. I'm ranking him because he was the QB10 finish last week. He looked really, really good against a really, really bad team in the Panthers. We'll see. The jury's still out. Number 19, Bo Nix, QB16 from last week. He is what he was in college. He looked very, very solid. Just an all-around smart, efficient player. He's no explosive player. He's not going to be, he's not going to win you weeks by himself or anything like that. But he's a low-end QB2. You know what you're going to get out of him. The Broncos actually struggled a lot that first game, and it takes rookie quarterbacks a few games to get running. For what Bo Nix showed in game 1 with a horrible team, I like the guy. I think he's a Baker Mayfield-esque player where he's middle of the pack, but he gets the job done. He's going to be a very startable quarterback for any franchise. And I think for fantasy, he's just going to be a solid super flex option. Number 20, I have Caleb Williams. Like I just said, it takes a bit for rookie quarterbacks to get running. In terms of actual QB production, I'm not counting Jaden Daniels here because he was a horrible quarterback. He was just a great running back. So with Caleb Williams, the other problem with Caleb Williams is that his O-line is detrimental to his health. So unlike Bo Nix, who has like a middle-of-the-pack O-line, Caleb Williams, it doesn't matter that Bo Nix doesn't have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, yada, yada. If you can't get protection, it doesn't matter who's on the other side of a pass because you're not going to get that pass out. So I'm extremely low on Caleb Williams for the rest of the season. I think once he gets running, he's still going to make do with what he's got. Justin Fields made it happen. He was a QB1 tier finish last season despite this O-line. So Caleb Williams better make it happen because if he doesn't, then Justin Fields was the better quarterback and the Bears wasted a first overall pick that they could have traded for so much. But yeah, Caleb Williams was awful. He's probably not going to be very good for the rest of the season either, but he should be able to pick it up once he kind of gets a better sense of this offense. We'll see. Running backs. In the RB1 tier, I have number 1, Saquon Barkley, who comes all the way up from number 11 to be my number 1 running back finish for the rest of the year. He is basically a Christian McCaffrey figure for the Eagles based on just last week. I try not to overreact to week 1 because I've seen every year the first game of the season, the Eagles running back looks like they're going to be the top overall finish of the year. And then every year as games go on, the Eagles use their running backs less and less. However, the only reason this time I'm going to allow myself to overreact is because it's Saquon Barkley, and I know how good this guy is in real life. He's one of the just top-tier running backs in the league. He's an incredible pure running back, and on top of that, he can catch the ball, unlike Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry. Number 2, I have Devon Achane. He goes up 1 rank because CMC drops due to injury. So basically, I would have had him the same if CMC was healthy. Yeah, he was incredible. Well, actually, not the same rank because he came above Bijan from last week as well. He was incredible in his game. He didn't get much on the ground, but anytime they passed him the ball, like 0-yard passes, he would run for 10 yards. He's awesome. He's going to be used as much as possible in this Dolphins offense. He's just so good, so fast. Number 3, I have Bijan Robinson. He's going to take a dip here. He was the RB20 finish for, I should mention, Devon Achane was the RB7 finish last week. Bijan Robinson is the RB20 finish last week. The reason I have him taking one rank dip is because from what I saw from the Falcons, I'm actually worried that coaching was maybe not the only issue with the Falcons from last year because they didn't look much different. And Bijan finished RB20 for the season last year, or like RB22 for the season last year. So if he's finishing RB20 in that first game, especially in a game where they didn't get a lot going in the air. And who did they play? It wasn't even a good team, was it? Let's see. They played the Steelers. Yeah, so no, that's a really good defense, actually. That is a really good defense. So benefit of the doubt, we'll give him one more time. But I'm worried about Bijan because he's finishing the same. He finished week one the same place he finished basically overall the rest of the last season. And last season we had a bunch of excuses for him. This season we don't. So if he's going to just keep doing this, he really is a bum. Number 4, I have Jahmyr Gibbs. Definitely not a bum. Jahmyr Gibbs is awesome. He looked awesome in that Lions game. I thought he would be the definite lead of the committee, the running back committee in Detroit. I was kind of surprised by his usage. He actually wasn't used as much as I thought he would be. And neither was David Montgomery. They really relied a lot on the passing game. I guess the game script maybe called for that, but I don't know. I'm not actually convinced the game script did because the Lions did have a pretty healthy lead going into, the midway through the third quarter and going up to midway through the fourth quarter. But, I guess because it's the Rams, they kept with the passing game because they know that the Rams have that ability to just explode for yards out of nowhere. But, yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is still my 4. I like him there. I think he's incredible, and he's going to net you so many points every week. And if his usage goes up, if his usage doesn't go up, then I'd be a little bit concerned, but his usage should go up. He was the RB16 finish last week. Number 5, I have Alvin Kamara, RB6 finish last week, 19.5 fantasy points. He was awesome. He has not missed a step. He is the exact same player that he was in his prime. They used him so much, too, the Saints. Despite the fact that they were in a game script that did not call for any running at all. They dominated the Panthers. I think they scored 50 points on their ass. So I don't know why they used him as much as he did, but they did, and he handled it. So I'm extremely high on Alvin Kamara for the rest of the season. Number 6, I have Breece Hall. I saw the exact same Breece Hall I saw last year, and that's good and bad. The bad news is he sucks, right? He's not good. He is running for 2 yards again per carry. The good news is his volume has not changed at all with Aaron Rodgers around. They are passing it to him the exact same amount. He got as many carries as he normally does. So he's extremely playable for fantasy. He's definitely going to finish in the RB1 tier just due to volume. I can't rank him over any of the guys ahead of him because he's just not as good as any of them. So he's not going to make the most use of that volume as any of these other guys could have. Finished RB14 for the week. Number 7, I have Christian McCaffrey. Even if he misses 2 weeks, I think he'll still finish comfortably in RB1 tier. Number 8, I have Joe Mixon. My biggest surprise of last week, Joe Mixon was the RB2 finish. He goes from, I think I had him ranked in flex tier, if I even had him ranked in flex tier, to being the RB8 finish for the year. He looked so good. He was so just efficient. He had more than 5 yards per carry. He looked awesome. The Texans, who did not run the ball, were running the ball with him a lot. I guess maybe the reason they didn't run the ball last year is they didn't trust their running backs. And they do trust Joe Mixon, and honestly, fair the way he played. Number 9, I have Isaiah Pacheco. I've kind of already talked about this. He stays where he was. He was the RB17 finish from last week, but, Pacheco is due to have some pretty big games coming for the rest of the season. His floor is obviously going to be really good as the only RB on the Chiefs. Number 10, I have J.K. Dobbins. I did say last week that J.K. Dobbins, if he stays healthy, can be one of those surprise gems of this season. Yeah, I mean, the Chargers used him a good amount, not as much as you would feel comfortable with. But when he did get used, he exploded for yardage. I mean, he had 2 Cookie Monster plays. I don't know if they were runs or if they were, I think they were runs. He had 2 Cookie Monster runs. One went for like 60 yards. One went for like 40 yards. So he's basically what you're hoping for out of Breece Hall, but without volume. RB2 tier, number 11, I have James Cook. Obviously, he's taking a dip here because Josh Allen ruins the Bills. That's all I'm going to say about it. I hate Josh Allen. Number 12, James Conner. He was the RB10 finish for last week. So pretty good. I brought him up about 3 ranks. I don't think he's finishing like that every week. I'm still concerned about his health. I just don't like James Conner. He's really not that good. He just gets a lot of volume for the Cardinals. And I think if the Cardinals are playing right, if they actually want to win games, which I know they don't, but if they actually want to win games, they need to start passing the ball and not using so much James Conner. I mean, the reason they never win games is how much they use James Conner. We'll see, I guess. I don't know. Number 13, I have Ramondre Stevenson. He looked like prime Ramondre Stevenson last week. He was the RB5 finish. If he plays like that every week, he's going to be an RB1 tier player. I think I'm not going to overreact too much to week 1. I'm going to say it was, I'm just going to take it for what it was. It was 1 week in a vacuum against a mid-tier defense. We'll see what he does for the rest of the season. But for now, I'm higher on him because there's not a lot of running backs to be high on. Number 14, I have Tony Pollard. He was the RB11 finish from last week. The only thing that stopped me from ranking Tony Pollard higher than 20, which is where I had him last week and in my initial rankings, the only thing that stopped me is I didn't know how much Tyjae Spears was going to be involved. But from what I saw, the Titans love what they have in Tony Pollard, and it's an offense that enjoys running the ball. They love that shit. That is their bread and butter. Tony Pollard looks to be the RB1 on the team, and they gave him way more carries than Tyjae. He was way better than Tyjae Spears with the carries that he did get. Tony Pollard's going to have a big year. Number 15, Kyren Williams, RB22 for last week. The reason he's taking a dip here, despite the fact that the Rams did not use Blake Corum at all, and it does not look like it's going to be a committee at all, is because even despite the fact that he got Kyren Williams level volume last week, he was bad. He was just bad. RB22 finish. I mean, he just wasn't effective at all. He kept getting stopped at the line. He looked a lot like Breece Hall, honestly. And I'm still assuming at some point they're going to start integrating Blake Corum into the offense. So if he's not exploding on the weeks where it's all him, later on in the season when it becomes more of a committee and his volume goes down, he's not going to be able to have a very strong finish. Number 16, I have Jonathan Taylor. He was the RB29 last week. He sucked. He looked horrible. I mean, he was completely stuffed by whatever defense they played, which I'll bring up in one sec. The Texans, who are not that great a defense, completely stuffed Jonathan Taylor. He looked absolutely useless out there. I don't overreact too much to week 1, but I would have a little bit of panic about Jonathan Taylor because he just didn't look good. It wasn't a game thing. It wasn't a script thing. He just looked bad. And that's what scares me the most. Those are the ones that scare me, is when they just don't look like good players. Hala again, week 1. Who knows what'll happen the rest of the season, but I have a little bit of worry in my heart about Jonathan Taylor. Number 17, Kenneth Walker. He was the RB9 finish for last week. He moves up just a little bit. I think he was 19 on the initial rankings because this is what I expected of Kenneth Walker. He's going to do well in the first half of the season, and then he's going to fizzle out just like last year, just like the year before. Number 18, I have Aaron Jones. He comes up from nowhere. No, actually, I think he was flexed here last week. He was the RB8 finish. He got a lot of volume. But what was important about how he played was not the volume. It was what he did with the volume. He looked great. He looked like the old Aaron Jones prior to the injury concerns. If he can keep that up, expect him to go even higher than this. Number 19, I have Gunshot Rob. He was the RB12 finish for last week. And he also was another one that just looked incredible. I mean, he took a step up, I think, from last season. He looked powerful. Like he looked like Derrick Henry, just going through the line. No one could stop him. Did not expect that out of him, to be honest. So I like him a lot as a low-end RB2. I don't see him doing much better than that game was peak, I think. I don't see him doing much better than that, but I like his floor, and I think he's someone you can be confident in at least putting in at flex every week. And then number 20, I have Nick Chubb. When he comes back, he's going to put these people to shame. I think he'll make up the difference. He's that good that he'll be able to finish in the RB2 tier. Number 21 in flex, I have Travis Etienne. He was the RB28 finish for last week with 10.9 fantasy points. So like I said, the people that I would actually be worried about are the ones who played poorly. Travis Etienne played poorly. He did not look good. Tank Bigsby, his backup, looked better than he did. And on top of him not looking good and also fumbling, I did mention before that he was 2 yards away from swinging to like 18 points or 19 points. But, he fumbled into the end zone. That aside, Jacksonville did use a committee like they said they would so that Etienne didn't have a lot of the same volume that he had last year. But after he fumbled into the end zone, they almost exclusively used Tank Bigsby, I guess, to teach him a lesson. I don't really know. But that's concerning because, Tank Bigsby played better than him. So if they continue doing stuff like that, Tank Bigsby is going to give them a reason to make him the RB1. So I'd be worried about Travis Etienne. Number 22, I have Derrick Henry. A couple things about Derrick Henry. He's washed. Full on, he's washed. He's not the same player he was in his prime. He's still very serviceable, very good player, but he's not Derrick Henry. He finished RB29, and he's never going to get involved in the passing game. So all of his yards are going to be pure running. The Ravens don't run as much as the Titans. This was my concern for Derrick Henry to begin with. Even aside from the fact that he's not the same Derrick Henry, the Ravens aren't going to run the ball that much. They don't need to. They have a quarterback that is running every play anyway. On top of that, the Ravens coach, I don't remember if it's Jim or John Harbaugh. I think it's Jim. I think John is the one on the Chargers or wherever the fuck he is. But he said that he quoted this after the game, we didn't bring Derrick Henry in here to be a bell cow running back. That's a dreadful quote for a running back you have in fantasy. So extremely low on Derrick Henry. Number 23, I have David Montgomery. He was the RB15 finish from last week, but almost all of his points came from overtime. He's the clear RB2 in the Lions, but they're still using much of a committee approach, so I think he's still serviceable. I think depending on matchup, you can feel pretty comfortable flexing him on a given week. Number 24, I have Josh Jacobs. I really want to drop him lower than this. He was the RB26 finish from last week. That was the best Josh Jacobs you're going to get this season. Let me just make that clear. The Packers are missing all of their running backs. The only one that's healthy is Josh Jacobs. As those running backs come back, Josh Jacobs' volume is going to go down. With the extreme volume that he did have, he sucked. He just didn't do anything with it, just like the Josh Jacobs of last year, the one that people weren't watching, and for some reason we're still high on Josh Jacobs. He sucks. He sucks. He absolutely sucks. He sucks. He sucks. This is the best he's going to do, and it was QB 26. He sucks. Number 25, I have Zach Moss, RB21 finish from last week. Looks like he's the clear RB1 on that team. over, what's his name? Chase Brown? He's the Bengals guy, right? Yeah, over Chase Brown. So, he's going to get his on a given week. He's a matchup-based flex, I think. Number 26, I have Alexander Mattison. He was the RB18 finish for last week. He is the backup running back to Zamir White on the Raiders, but when the Raiders put Alexander Mattison in, he did so much better than Zamir White and made their offense serviceable that I think I see a world in which Alexander Mattison becomes the RB1 on this team and can give you flex tier weeks. I'm not super high on him, but still a playable player, I would say. For wide receivers, my wide receiver 1 tier, despite CeeDee Lamb having a bad week, wide receiver 24, like I said, it was due to game script. I still have him as wide receiver 1. Tyreek Hill finished wide receiver 4. I still have him as wide receiver 2. Number 3, I have Cooper Kupp. So he finished wide receiver 2 last week. The reason he goes up from not being ranked to the 3rd overall finish is obviously Puka's injury. Stafford, with just one wide receiver to throw to, is going to feed him like crazy. I mean, you saw it in that game. Cooper Kupp is going to get so much volume as long as Puka's out. And once Puka comes back he has a nagging knee issue. So once Puka comes back, Cooper Kupp is going to be so established in the offense already that he's going to be the number 1 read for the Rams moving forward this season, probably. And even if he's not, they're both going to get a lot of fantasy points from Matthew Stafford throughout the season. The difference is Cooper Kupp is going to have 4 weeks of being the only wide receiver and the points that come with that built up. So, yeah, Cooper Kupp is a top 5 wide receiver finish for this year due to the Puka injury. Number 4, Justin Jefferson. I was lower on him because of Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was super serviceable. So I am back to being high on Justin Jefferson. He was the wide receiver 15 finish from last week. And yeah, I think wide receiver 15 is not that good. And the Vikings played really well. So maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but I still think, it's Justin Jefferson. So I don't know. I believe in the guy. So, yeah, despite the wide receiver 15 finish, I still think he will. And I also just don't believe in anyone else. That's the big one, really. I have such a tough time with so many other players on this list. The wide receiver situation this year, I should say, is dreadful. Wide receiver is the new running back. Like, there's not many that you can trust. There's not good ones. Like, there aren't that many good ones. It's crazy. Yeah, so Justin Jefferson, number 4. Number 5, I have Mike Evans. Do not doubt this guy. Do not doubt him ever again. He moves up a tier into the 5th place spot. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. No one's ever disproven me as much as Mike Evans has. He's made me look dumb over and over again. Wide receiver 6 finish from last week. He looked awesome in game too. Oh my God, he looked like the best player on the field. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Number 6, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was wide receiver 77 last week. I wouldn't think too much of that. Sure, Jameson Williams was very involved last week, but I don't know. Yeah, Jameson Williams was very involved, but it's still Amon-Ra St. Brown. If Jameson Williams is really going to be involved as much as he was last week, then I would be panicking for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I just don't believe that he will be. Yeah. Number 7, I have A.J. Brown. He was the wide receiver finish. He was the wide receiver 7 finish from last week. Yeah, I have him where I had him. I don't have too much to say about him. You know who he is. Number 8, I have Jamar Chase. He's going to take a dip because of Joe Burrow. Yeah. The jury's still out on the Bengals. We'll see what happens with Joe Burrow, if he's actually still having nagging wrist issues or if, it's just the Bengals needing to warm up a little bit before they get their season running. Jamar Chase was the wide receiver 31 finish from last week. Number 9, I have Deebo Samuel. He was the wide receiver 12 finish. He looked awesome. He's still doing what he does being used in so many different ways creatively in the 49ers offense. He's always, I feel like you need to pencil him in for a touchdown a week because of the way the 49ers play. So, he's moving up a tier into the 9th spot. Pretty sure that's where he finished last season. So, yeah. Number 10, I have Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 33. The reason I have him high, Allen Lazard, the worst wide receiver in the league, who is on the Packers, finished wide receiver 3 this last week because of how much Aaron Rodgers targeted him. He targeted Garrett Wilson more. So what I saw out of Garrett Wilson vindicated my belief that he is a top-notch wide receiver. The Jets just need to get Aaron Rodgers some protection. And honestly, playing the 49ers week 1, that's a tough task for anybody. I mean, no one's going to be awesome against the Niners defense. So we'll see when they get a little bit of a break. I mean, they have the Titans next. That's not a defense I would be too scared of. I think this week will prove that Garrett Wilson is a top-tier wide receiver and that the Jets have a serviceable offense. Wide receiver 2 tier, number 11, I have Rashee Rice. He was the wide receiver 16 finish for last week. He looks to be very involved in this Chiefs offense, so I'm high on him moving forward. The Chiefs just need to get their touchdowns, and then players on the Chiefs will blow up in points. Rashee Rice will be a main beneficiary of that. Number 12, I have Brian Thomas Jr., the clear wide receiver 1 on the Jaguars. He looked awesome in that game 1. He was the wide receiver 12 finish for last week. And I think he has a good floor because of what his role is in that Jacksonville offense. He's the main guy. So, yeah, I think he's going to have a big role moving forward. Marvin Harrison is my number 13. He was the wide receiver 104 for last week with 0.9 points. I'm choosing to believe that it was a fluke week, but Kyler Murray does scare me. I mean, if he is not, there's a viral clip circulating in the air of Marvin Harrison Jr. like running completely open, screaming for the ball all the way into the end zone, and no pass ever comes to him. There's no way that keeps happening, right? There's simply no way that continues to happen. So that's what I'm going to say. It was a fluke week. Number 14, I have Jaden Reed. He does not move from his rank from last week. He is the wide receiver 1 finish from last week with 31.1 points. He got enough points in that week 1 to account for 2 weeks. So he's going to only really get punished for 2 weeks of Jordan Love not being there. And I'm sure he'll still get some points to stay well within the hunt for, a top 10 finish. I just don't expect that he will get enough. Yeah, he's the number 1 target on the Packers. He's by far the best wide receiver. He's the only one they scheme for. Like they're drawing up plays specifically to go to Jaden Reed. So he's the one that I feel like will be impacted the least by Jordan Love being gone, but they're all going to be impacted because Jordan Love is such a good quarterback, and you can't just replace him with a guy who's sitting on the bench. Number 15, I have George Pickens. This one really depends on whether or not Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is playing the majority of this season. If this is me considering the scenario of Justin Fields being his main quarterback moving on the rest of the season. Because with Justin Fields, George Pickens will get his. The Steelers did not get any touchdowns that first game. They beat whatever team it is they beat. Who was it, actually? Because I was just talking about them getting destroyed by TJ Watt, the other team getting destroyed by TJ Watt. Let's see. The Steelers, was it the Vikings? No. Who did the Steelers play? The Falcons, that's right, Kirk Cousins. Oh, I said Vikings because of Cousins. So they beat the Falcons without scoring a single offensive touchdown. They had 6 field goals. Or did their defense score also? I don't know. Whatever. It was 18-10, not a single touchdown for the Steelers. So the touchdowns will come. When the touchdowns comes, George Pickens will start scoring higher than wide receiver 26. And I just know Justin Fields, and I know he likes to have one read because he takes so long to pass the ball that he's just either going to run or give it straight to his first read. So George Pickens, as long as Justin Fields is the quarterback, is a really good wide receiver to play. If it's Russell Wilson, I wouldn't be high on him. Number 16, I just have Texans wide receiver. Like I said, the Texans situation is just a nightmare to deal with. Every week, they're going to cycle. One of them is going to look like a stud. The other two are going to look like flexes, if not worse. So, yeah, I don't love the Texans situation. Stephon Diggs was the most targeted Texan wide receiver from last week, but he wasn't getting a lot of yards. I mean, he was targeted mostly on short routes, and he just happened to be getting the ball on 2 short touchdowns. So it's not like I'm huge on Stephon Diggs thinking he's going to be the guy. I'm not huge on any of them, but at the end of the day, I'm sure one of them will get enough points this season because of how good the Texans' overall offense is to finish in the 16 spot. Number 17, I have Michael Pittman Jr. He was the wide receiver 60 from last week, so really he shouldn't be here if you think about it because he went up in ranking compared to last week. The reason I do have him higher up is because he was targeted a lot by Anthony Richardson, and I'm just thinking that Anthony Richardson's got to pick it up because you couldn't possibly be worse than how Anthony Richardson was last week. Sure, he got 2 bomb touchdowns to whatever the fuck that guy's name is, Alec Pierce. But those were flukes. 100% those were flukes. And he's just got to be better than that. There's no way that he's missing Pittman on these shorter routes consistently throughout the rest of the season. He only connected on 50% of his targets. Either way, Pittman is still clearly the wide receiver 1 on that team. He's getting the most targets. He's getting the most plays that are being schemed specifically for him. So I think just one bad week, but he should still be very consistent in the wide receiver 2 tier for the rest of the season. Number 18, I have Ladd McConkey. He was the wide receiver 20 finish for last week with 12 points. Half of those points were from just 1 touchdown. More than half of those points were from just 1 touchdown. Basically 1 play. I'm a lot lower on Ladd McConkey than I was. I honestly feel like I should have put him in flex tier. We'll see. Number 19, I have Brandon Ayuk. He finished wide receiver 66, and despite that, I brought him up a whole tier, and that's just because Brandon Ayuk looks great. I mean, he looked great in that game despite barely getting targeted. And when I got to this point, like once I got past George Pickens, I had a really tough time because everybody sucks. Everybody just sucks. Either their situation is dreadful or they're dreadful, right? In Brandon Ayuk's case, he's he's good and his situation's fine, so that's why he's number 19. Now, Keenan Allen, number 20, he was the wide receiver 64 finish from last week, or 65 finish from last week. I don't know why this says it didn't change that. No, it was 60, actually. It was 60. Yeah. 4. Whatever. It's not that important. Anyway, Keenan Allen got 11 targets in that Bears game. 11 targets and connected on 4 of them. Caleb Williams is going to want to pass this guy the ball. It remains to be seen whether Caleb wanting to pass him the ball is going to actually lead to anything. In flex tier, I have, starting off at 21, Devonta Smith, who was the wide receiver 21 with 11.9 fantasy points. The Eagles look good. Devonta looked good. But we know, right? We've seen this. This is the same Eagles team we've been seeing for the last 2 years. He'll have certain weeks where he looks really good. He'll have certain weeks where he's completely absent. I'm not too high on Devonta, but I'm so much lower on everybody else. Number 22, I have another Texans wide receiver. I don't think I need to explain more than that. Number 23, I have Davante Adams with the RB38 finish from last week. That Raiders offense is horrible, awful to look at, and Brock Bowers is the number 1 target on that team, so sell your Davante Adams stocks. Number 24, Jalen Waddle was the wide receiver 17 finish from last week. The Dolphins had a good game. They're not always going to have good games. And as long as they are having good games, Jalen Waddle will have solid finishes. When they're not having good games, he's going to hurt more than Tyreek Hill is. Like, Tyreek Hill will still get his. Jalen Waddle will not get his in bad games. So I really wish I could have just not ranked him. But like I said, everybody's dreadful. Number 25, Chris Olave, RB 88 finish from last week. He's a horrible player. I hate him. I wish I didn't fall into peer pressure and rank him 18 last week. He didn't deserve it. He sucks. Number 26, DK Metcalf, wide receiver, 63 finish from last week. Yeah, he sucks. I have nothing. Again, he sucks. He just sucks. He's the wide receiver 1 for the Seahawks, but he sucks. Number 28, I have DJ Moore. He was the RB 44 finish from last week. He also got a lot of targets. So I think he got 9 targets and also only connected on 4 of them, just like Keenan Allen, but he's just better than Keenan Allen, so he was able to do more with them. Yeah. If the Bears' offense works like it's supposed to, these two are going to kill it this season, but it's not, so no need to talk about it. DJ Moore takes a huge drop. Tight ends, number 1 and 2 haven't changed. Sam Laporta finished tight end 8. Trey McBride finished tight end 11. All the good tight ends finished poorly, so I'm not too worried about any of that. It was game 1. Number 3, I have Travis Kelce. He goes up a little bit despite finishing tight end 14 because of my 2 drops. Number 4, I have Kyle Pitts. He finished tight end 3. He looks like he's going to be the main beneficiary of Kirk Cousins at quarterback. He proved, I think, that he was just missing quarterback play. He really is that guy and was just missing quarterback play, unlike his teammate Drake London, who proved that he really just is a bum. Okay, and that makes up the wide receiver 1 and 2 scoring tier. And then we have the flex level scoring tier. Number 5, I have Evan Ingram, who hasn't moved. The only reason the up arrow is there is because I dropped 2 other tight ends from that first tier. Same thing with George Kittle. I mean, all these guys are exactly what I expect of them. Their point finishes don't matter too much to me. From week 1. Yeah, so they don't matter that much to me because it's just week 1, not much to take from that. They all finished around the same point totals anyway, despite the big differences in the number ranking. So TJ Hawkinson, number 7. Again, he hasn't moved from last week. I still think once he comes back, he's going to outscore most of the other tight ends by so much that he'll still find his way into this second tier and finish at least 7th overall. And then number 8, I have Dalton Kincaid. Of all the tight ends, this is the only one that I actually am worried about after week 1 because of Josh Allen. Josh Allen is the worst quarterback to have a fantasy player target for in this league because he's not looking to pass at all. He's not looking to pass. He just wants to run. He's a shit player. He's a fucking running back that needs to be moved to the running back position so that the Bills can get a real quarterback and feed Kincaid. I hate Josh Allen. I hate Josh Allen. I hate Josh Allen. I hate him. Anyway, number 8, Dalton Kincaid. He was a tight end, 37 finish from last week. Alhamdulillah. With 1.6 fantasy points. Josh Allen has ruined this guy. I hate him. Alrighty, well, that does it for all the rankings.
And now, for expectations, we will start with Zombie Yamcha.
So, starting off with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, who are going to be playing the Las Vegas Raiders. Looking at the Raiders depth chart, what we already knew about was Max Crosby, right? Max Crosby is one of the best edge players in the league and is going to cause a lot of trouble for Lamar Jackson in the pass game, which means that he is going to run a lot this week and probably get a lot of points. Derrick Henry against the Raiders defense should be fine as well because outside of Max Crosby, their edge, they really don't have much of a defense. Christian Wilkins is one of their defensive tackles, those are the guys who are mainly tasked with stopping the run, and the strong safety. Their strong safety sucks. Christian Wilkins is a mid defensive lineman and the only one I even recognize on this team. So, yeah, the Raiders should be a pretty easy matchup and helpful for getting some points for Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, although Derrick Henry is just going to be a usage thing. James Conner is going to be playing against the Rams D-line. Don't let the 30th opponent rank that ESPN has here fool you. The Lions did that to the Rams and made them 30th, mostly through their O-line. The Rams have a really good run defense, actually, so don't expect James Conner to get much through the run. If they involve him a lot in the passing game, then he'll get his points, but he won't be able to run on the Rams very easily. One, he doesn't have the Lions O-line. Two, he's not as powerful as David Montgomery, which is where that 30th ranking is coming from. I'm betting it's just from OT. And three, the Rams have Kobe Turner. They have Byron Young. They have some linebackers. Their strong safety is who's our strong safety? I forgot. So the strong safety is the position that usually helps out with the run defense. And ours is Cam Curl, who is a really good player. Yeah, so don't expect much from James Conner against the Rams, at least not through the running. If they involve him a lot in the passing game, then he'll be fine with his points. A.J. Brown against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are a solid team. They have Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates? I did not even know that. So both of their safeties are in maybe the best free safety in the league and the best strong safety in the league. And then they have A.J. Terrell, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. They run a base 3-4, which basically just means that they have two edge players with one interior defensive lineman. So they're not set up for the run, but they are set up for the pass. That means they have very good pass rushing. I didn't even know they had Matthew Judon. Jesus Christ, this defense is really good. So they have Matthew Judon, who is one of the best edge players, pass rushers in the league. They have David Onyemata as their interior defensive lineman, who is one of the better interior defensive linemen in the league. They have Troy Anderson as interior linebacker, and basically what an interior linebacker does, or middle linebacker as I would call them, what they do is they help out overall with the defense. So having a good interior linebacker or middle linebacker is really important for an overall defensive team, right? Like an overall good defense. That's why you'll see teams like the Ravens be so talented, or like the 49ers, because they have the two best middle linebackers, right? The Ravens have Roquan Smith. The Niners have Fred Warner. Those are the two best middle linebackers in the league, and it's no surprise they're on two of the best defenses in the league. But yeah, no, the Falcons, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how many people they got this season, because their defense is looking filthy. That's probably why the Steelers weren't able to score a single touchdown on them. Yeah, I would be low on the Eagles' offense this week, to be honest. I think they're going to have a lot of trouble. Their O-line should be able to hold back the pass rushing, but A.J. Terrell is definitely going to be on A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown is probably a better wide receiver than A.J. Terrell is a cornerback, but A.J. Terrell also has Jesse Bates coming in to help him on, those deep passes, and Justin Simmons. Ooh, that's a nasty defense. I don't think you can expect too many explosive plays from the Eagles this week. Nico Collins is playing the Chicago Bears, who have an incredibly good defense this year. Jalen Johnson is, I think, a top 5 cornerback. So Jalen Johnson is going to be, I don't know, actually. He might be on Stephon Diggs. They might not match Jalen Johnson with one specific player. They might just go based on play. Collins might be okay. He might be okay. If Jalen Johnson isn't on Jalen Johnson is a better cornerback than anyone is a wide receiver on the Texans. So whoever he's going to be on is going to have trouble. They have Tremaine Edmonds as middle linebacker, who is also one of the better middle linebackers in the league. He's top 10 at least. I can't off the top of my head name 5 better ones, but there might be. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But I mean, they have TJ Edwards as an edge, Tremaine Edmonds as a middle linebacker. They have Montez Sweat as another edge. They run a 4-3, which means they have 2 edge players and 2 interior linemen. So, they have a more well-rounded defense. They can do it all. Obviously, here we only really care about the wide receivers, so we only really care about their pass rush. But I'm sure I'm going to encounter a running back that's playing the, Chicago Bears defense. Someone has Joe Mixon, so just to let that be known early on in this. But yeah, Jaquan Brisker is their strong safety who's very solid. Tyreek Stevenson is a solid, second cornerback. So they have a really good pass defense. They have a good secondary. They have a really good secondary. Their linebackers are awesome. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, Jack Sanborn. They have, that back 7 is looking really good. And in fact, this whole defense is looking really good. I mean, Montez Sweat, TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, Jack Sanborn, Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker, Tyreek Stevenson. Obviously, Jalen Johnson and Tremaine Edmonds are on a different level than the rest of them, but Montez Sweat is also a good edge player. The pass rush is going to be tough to beat for the Texans. And then on top of that, even if you get the pass out, then you have to deal with that secondary. Ooh, I don't like how this looks for CJ Stroud, honestly. Tight end, we have Colby Parkinson. They're playing the Cardinals. The Cardinals don't really have, they're like a mid-tier defense. They basically have Budda Baker, who is the second best free safety in the league after Jesse Bates, and he's really, really good, but that's it. That's all they have. There's nothing to fear on the Cardinals defense. Every Rams player is playable this week. Jaden Daniels is playing the Giants. Actually a mid-tier defense. They're not bad, but their offense is going to be off the floor so often. Actually, they might not be because they're playing the Commanders. I don't know what to make of that matchup. It's 2 really bad teams, so I don't really know what to make of that matchup. Yeah, and the Chargers against the Panthers is as good a pick as you can get. The Panthers suck. On the bench, just quick mention if there's anything that seems like is a good play here. Gus Edwards against the Panthers might be a play. Have I talked about the Texans? Let's see. Keenan Allen is playing the Texans. So Chicago is playing the Texans. Montgomery is playing the Bucks. They don't really have a defense. So that's another consideration I would have. The problem is you would have to take out James Conner, which is, I can understand why that would be pretty scary to do. I may honestly put in Cooper Kupp where Nico Collins is and take Nico Collins out and play either Keenan Allen or David Montgomery for this team. I don't like Collins against that Chicago Bears defense. I really like David Montgomery against the Buccaneers. Obviously, I'm afraid of Keenan Allen because it's the Bears, but let's see the Houston Texans defense. So their front 7 is... So they're playing a base 4-3, right? Their interior linemen are Mario Edwards Jr. and Foloronso Fatukasi. I don't know either of those guys. And if I don't know them, that means they're not that good. Their right defensive end is Daniel Hunter. So he would, in a 4-3 defense, he's playing the role of an interior lineman as well. And then you have Will Anderson Jr. That's one of their star players on defense. He's coming in as the left edge. And you have Azeez Al-Shire coming in as the right edge from a linebacker position. So those are your 5 on the line, right? The 2 edge players are solid. Will Anderson's really good. I really like Will Anderson. Azeez Al-Shire is like, he's a starter for any team, but like not that good. So solid pass rush, not anything exceptional. Mid-tier pass rush. They have Jake Hansen as middle linebacker, and then they have Henry To'o as their third linebacker. Yeah. Those guys are mid to below average. Henry To'o is okay. Jake Hansen is below average. So nothing to be worried about there. Their quarterback 1 is Derek Stingley Jr., who's elite. Maybe their second best defensive player, maybe even better than Will Anderson, actually. So, the wide receiver 1 target on the opposing team is probably going to have a tough time. Now, the opposing team is the Bears, so you don't really know. It's the same situation as the Texans, right? Like, you don't really know who they're going to put their top-tier cornerback on, because it could just be based on play. They have Jalen Petre as strong safety. Don't recognize that person. Jimmy Ward at free safety. Jimmy Ward is a really good safety. He's not like elite, but he's like upper mid. So, and like I said, free safeties are the ones who mainly deal with the passing game. So they don't have a bad pass defense, right? They have 2 good pass rushers. They have a solid elite CB1, and they have a very good free safety. So, although it does say on ESPN that they gave the 28th most, or they were the 28th, they were almost the worst, right, against the pass for fantasy for opposing wide receivers. But I can understand. I mean, it's the Bears. I wouldn't trust them either. Now, David Montgomery, let's look at the Buccaneers. Let's look at the Buccaneers depth chart. God, I wish I had like an editor or a producer to like streamline this stuff. Next time I have to just have all this stuff in front of me. Okay. So the Buccaneers, Jesus Christ, everyone on this team has a Q next to them. This is crazy. So the Buccaneers, they're playing a base 3-4, right? So they have basically their edge rushers, their real edge rushers become, like, on any given play, they're really playing like an interior lineman role. But they have Kalijah Kancey, who, he's okay. He didn't break out the way he was drafted last year. This is his second year. I thought he was going to break out and be one of the best interior linemen in the league, but didn't quite do that. They have Vita Vea, who actually is one of the best interior linemen in the league. Logan Hall, opposite him, don't know him. Yaya Diaby as one of their 4 linebackers. So a base 3-4 is 3 linemen and then 4 linebackers, but usually 2 of the linebackers play the role of edge rushers in a 3-4, but they swap in and out, depends on the play. So a 3-4 is more versatile, but usually is more geared towards the pass. Whereas a 4-3 is a little bit less versatile, but well-rounded. It can defend the pass or the run. But, you don't have as many trick plays with like the 3-4, like you don't confuse the offense as much. That's the main thing to know. So yeah, of their linebackers, they have Yaya Diaby, KJ Britt, Levante David is the only name I recognize out of these, and then Joe Tryon Shoyinka. So, that's bad. Levante David isn't even that good, and that's the only one I recognize. So, and then cornerbacks, they have Jamel Dean, Zion McCollum, and their safeties are Antoine Winfield Jr. at free safety, and then the only other player I recognize on this defense is Jordan Whitehead. So, bad. This is really bad. And they're all questionable or injured or doubtful. I really like David Montgomery here. I'm not going to lie. I mean, Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey, like one of the only things it looks like they are good at. I mean, Jordan Whitehead is their strong safety. Kalijah Kancey I think he plays the role of edge for this team, but he's really an interior lineman. And then Vita Vea is one of the best interior linemen in the league. They're not set up to defend the run very well, but they have the players that can, right? All their good players on this team are run stoppers. So, but I don't know. I like David Montgomery here. Whatever. So, yeah, pretty good matchups this week. Some of them are a little bit rough, but I think both the Ravens and the Rams, having those 2 teams against teams that they should score on, I would feel pretty happy with that. The only one I'm not so sure about is Nico Collins. Now we're looking at Keon's team. Brock Purdy is going to be against the Vikings, and they are apparently number 1 ranked against opposing quarterbacks. In just one moment here, while I bring up all the team's depth charts that I'm about to be going through. Okay, looks like we're ready here. So, starting with Brock Purdy, who is playing the Vikings. So here we're going to really be looking at their pass defense. But, just for the sake of other players that are going to be playing the Vikings, I will just go through everything. So they play a base 3-4, right? Their three linemen are Jerry Tillery, Harrison Phillips, and Jonathan Bullard. Never heard of any of them. They suck. And then their 4 linebackers, you have Jonathan Greenard, Ivan Pace Jr., who's really good, Blake Cashman, and Andrew Van Ginkel, who's okay. Nothing to write home about, but solid. Then they have at cornerback, so in their secondary, their first cornerback is Stephon Gilmore, who obviously in his prime was one of the best cornerbacks in the league, but is a little bit washed now, still serviceable. Harrison Smith at strong safety, okay. Cameron Bynum, never heard of him. Shaquille Griffin is their CB2, so not very good. Or not very good, but I don't know him. And then nickelback, so their cornerback 3 is Byron Murphy Jr. Don't know him either. So as far as passing go, their line is dreadful, right? Ivan Pace Jr. is basically their main edge. He's good, but the rest of the line is so bad, it doesn't really matter. Actually, Ivan Pace Jr. is not their edge. Never mind. He's an interior linebacker, so he's a middle linebacker. Yeah. They're not going to threaten the 49ers pass game. They're not going to threaten the 49ers running game either. They don't have anyone, really. They just really don't have anyone on defense. This defense is dreadful. Yeah, the 49ers should probably blow them out really quickly and probably are going to have a running game script because of how quickly they blow them out. So I would not be high on Brock Purdy this week. Then we have James Cook, who is playing the Dolphins. Okay, so base 3-4. Their linemen are Zach Sealer, Benito Jones, and Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell's solid. He's probably their main edge on this team. I think he plays the role of edge. So, yeah, that's mostly going to be for the pass game, so this doesn't really matter. And then for their linebackers, we have Jalen Phillips, David Long Jr., who's solid, Jordan Brooks, who's solid, and Quentin Bell. So their 2 interior linebackers are solid. But, yeah, that doesn't specifically affect James Cook because middle linebackers kind of do everything on defense. So just in general, mid-tier defense so far. Their cornerback 1 is Kendall Fuller. Wait, no, it's not. It's Jalen Ramsey, who obviously is a top 5 cornerback. Kendall Fuller is their cornerback 2, who as a cornerback 2 is solid. Javon Holland at free safety, again, solid. Jordan Poyer at strong safety, again, solid. So solid defense. They're not exceptional. The only exceptional player on this entire defense is Jalen Ramsey. The rest is just like upper mid. So, James Cook is going to have a James Cook game. It really just depends on how much Josh Allen wants to ruin the Bills. So that's the Miami Dolphins. Madison is playing the Ravens. Of course, we know the Ravens are an elite defense. I'll go over why in a sec. So they're playing a base 3-4. Their defensive line is Nnamdi Madabuke, Michael Pierce, and Travis Jones. Of these, I only know Madabuke, who is solid. Their linebackers are Odafe Owe, who I think plays as their edge player. He's awesome. Roquan Smith, who I already mentioned, is one of the 2 best interior linebackers in the league. Trenton Simpson, I don't know. And Kyle Van Noy, who is an exceptional outside linebacker. Roquan and Kyle Van Noy are questionable. That's interesting. If they are not in, right? Wait, this is Alexander Madison, huh? I didn't even realize what level of player this was. If they're not in, Madison could have a better day. Yeah. Their cornerback one is Marlon Humphrey, who's a top 10 cornerback. Kyle Hamilton is their strong safety, very solid player. Marcus Williams is their free safety, very solid player. And then cornerback 2 is Brandon Stevens, who I don't know, so he must suck. Yeah, so, elite defense. I mean, they have, as a floor, most of their players are above average, but then they have a few exceptional players. Like they have Roquan Smith, Odafe Owe, Kyle Van Noy, Marlon Humphrey. And the problem with the Ravens is they're good everywhere, right? So there's not one specific area. They're not a better pass rush or a better run stop defense. They're just good everywhere. They're so well-rounded. And their best player is a middle linebacker, which their whole point is being well-rounded. So, I don't feel comfortable playing anyone against the Ravens, let alone bum-ass Alexander Madison. Okay, then we have Justin Jefferson, who's against the 49ers. Another case of we know this defense is elite. Ugh, I hate them. Yeah, so they play a base 4-3. Their line is Leonard Floyd, who's really good, Malik Collins, who's really good, Javon Hargrave, who's really good, and Nick Bosa, who's elite. Yeah, so Nick Bosa is their right defensive end. He's one of the best edge players in the league. Javon Hargrave is one of their interior linemen and one of the best players in the league at that position. Leonard Floyd is an above average defensive end. He's playing their left defensive end, so he's another above average edge for them. Malik Collins is an average 2 above interior lineman. So their line already looks unbelievably incredible. You cannot really run on these guys. That's not what Justin Jefferson would be doing anyway. And then at their linebackers, they're a little weak here because outside of Fred Warner, who I've already mentioned as one of the 2 top middle linebackers in the league, they have Devondre Campbell, who must be a new player. I've never heard of him. Oh, it's because Dre Greenlaw is out. That's their normal guy there. Dre Greenlaw is really good, but looks like he's injured. And then the other one is Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. I've never heard of him. Cornerbacks, they have Charvarius Ward, who's average to above average. Strong safety, they have Talanoa Hufanga, who's one of the better strong safeties in the league, but he's questionable. He would be affecting the run more. Free safety, they have Jair Brown. I've never heard of him. He must be new. And then their second cornerback is Isaac Yiadom, who I've also never heard of, which is weird because they have Rocky Sin. And then nickelback, they have Diamador Lenore, who's solid. So actually, their back 7 doesn't look as good as it has in previous years. Their line is incredible. Their back 7 doesn't look that good. So Justin Jefferson could eat. I mean, Justin Jefferson is 10 times the wide receiver that their CB1, Charvarius Ward, is a cornerback. Justin Jefferson could eat against these guys. It's just what it'll come down to is how much can the Vikings line defend Sam Darnold from what's sure to be an aggressive pass rush, right? Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd. It'll come down to the O-line for this one, but when Sam Darnold gets the chance to pass, Justin Jefferson should eat. Devontae Adams, he is playing Baltimore. We already talked about Baltimore. They're good everywhere. And the Raiders are bad everywhere. So I don't know if it's more a Ravens thing or if it's just a Raiders thing, but I wouldn't be high on Devontae Adams this week. It does say 27th opponent rank for Ravens. Who knows? Sam Laporta is playing the Buccaneers. Already talked about the Buccaneers. I think you play Sam Laporta with confidence. Ladd McConkey is playing the Panthers. Obviously, we know the Panthers suck, but I'll just go through them. They play a base 3-4. You have Ashawn Robinson at defensive end. So that's going to be the only name, I think. No, wait, there's a couple. Okay, you have Ashawn Robinson, Shy Tuttle, Jaden Peavy. Ashawn Robinson is the only name I know in this line, and he's actually bad. I know him for being bad. So A'Shawn Robinson is not good. This line already, meh. Linebackers, they have Ekuliota, Shaq Thompson, who is okay, Josie Jewell, and Jadeveon Clowney, who used to be really good but is super washed now. Yeah, nothing to be worried about in the front seven. Then they have Michael Jackson at cornerback, never heard of him. Strong safety, Jordan Fuller, solid. Xavier Woods as free safety, never heard of him. And J.C. Horn as their right cornerback, and Troy Hill as their nickel back. So in this, Jordan Fuller is good, and J.C. Horn is good. But they're just like above average. So that's the best this team can offer. Their defense is super exploitable. Play Ladd McConkey with confidence. Baker Mayfield is going to be up against the Lions defense. And looks like this is the only one I didn't bring up. Just one moment. Please hold. Please hold. Okay, they have Aiden Hutchinson. They have a base 4-3 with Aiden Hutchinson, Alim McNeil, DJ Reader, and Marcus Davenport. Aiden Hutchinson is a top edge in this league. DJ Reader is a top interior lineman in this league. Marcus Davenport is an above average edge. So solid line. Then in their linebackers for the rest of their front seven, they have Jack Campbell, who's solid. Alex Anzalone is solid. Never heard of Derek Barnes. So their front seven is solid to pretty fucking good. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson is the only thing that's... Aiden Hutchinson and DJ Reader are really fucking good in there. The rest are solid. So that's a good front seven, which won't matter too much for Baker Mayfield other than the pass rush from Aiden Hutchinson. And then their secondary is actually dreadful. The only good player they have in their secondary is Brian Branch. But Brian Branch is elite, like top 5 strong safety. I mean, he was a rookie last year, and he's already top 5. He's that good. So, Brian Branch is one of those like rare strong safeties that you have to worry about in the pass game. That's the only thing Baker Mayfield really has to worry about. Just Aiden Hutchinson up front, and then Brian Branch in the backfield. I mean, it's definitely a much taller order than the Commanders, so not as confident on Baker Mayfield this week, but he should still be fine. All right, so that does it for Keon. We'll move on to the next team. I will stop recording and start. All right, so God bless Zion's team because he has so many players from the same teams that I'm not going to have to go through much here. So Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Rashee Rice, they're all going to be affected by the pass defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. So we'll go straight to that. The Cincinnati Bengals play a base 4-3. So their line looks like this. They have at the two ends, their two defensive ends, they have Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson. Both are average to above average players. Their interior linemen are Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill. Nothing to write home about. So no real, defense against the run there, but they do have good, solid defense against the pass. Their linebackers are solid too. They have Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt. Both are okay. Don't recognize their third linebacker, Akeem Davis-Gaither. So nothing to worry about there. And then their secondary, they have Von Bell at strong safety, Geno Stone at free safety, Dax Hill, Mike Hilton, and Cam Taylor-Britt as their cornerbacks. Of these, the only cornerback that's worth anything is Cam Taylor-Britt, and he's only average. So their pass defense, I would say, starts up front. As long as Patrick Mahomes is protected, which he doesn't need to be really because he's so good at getting away from the defense that he doesn't even need a super talented O-line. As long as he can get the pass out, the Chiefs are going to eat the Bengals up. So play all your Chiefs with confidence. I think you're going to have an easy time against this Bengals team. It says on ESPN, obviously, that Rashee Rice and for Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice, that the Bengals, based on what they're saying, seems like a really good defense. They're fifth in opponent-ranked quarterbacks and second in opponent-ranked wide receivers. I think that's only because they played the Patriots, who suck, and they still lost. So, yeah, play them with confidence. You can run on these guys. You can pass on these guys. Their defense is mid. This is the team that used to have Justin Simmons, who's one of the best, strong safeties in the league. And he was doing a lot. He was holding this defense down. So they're nothing. They're nothing. They're going to be really easy for the Chiefs to just score points on. Yeah, play your Chiefs with confidence. Tampa Bay is against the Lions. I already mentioned the Lions. Their run defense is a lot stronger, whereas their pass defense in the secondary is just Brian Branch and then Aiden Hutchinson up top. Their run defense is really good. So luckily, Rachaad White does most of his work through passes, like 0-yard passes. So he should be fine. But I wouldn't expect much from him against Detroit. Jordan Mason is against the Vikings, which we've already mentioned as well, and they don't have anything for running backs. Like, if they have anything if their defense has any strength, it'll be in the secondary and the pass defense. So play Jordan Mason with confidence. Amon-Ra St. Brown. It says Tampa Bay is first in opponent-ranked wide receivers. I would not be worried about that. We already talked about Tampa Bay. They're stronger run defense than they are pass defense. I would play Sun God with confidence. Brandon Ayuk is playing the Vikings like we just talked about. The Vikings are, probably better at defending the pass than the run, but not really great at either. So I would play Ayuk with confidence. And then we got Justin Fields, who is playing the Broncos. Oh, he's starting for sure this week? Oh, great. And he's projected a lot of points. Good for him. Let's see. I guess that makes sense because they're assuming he's just going to run a lot. But the Broncos line, they play a base 3-4 with Zach Allens, DJ Jones, and John Franklin Myers. Of those, John Franklin Myers is good. I don't know the other two. And their linebackers are Baron Browning, Alex Singleton, Cody Barton, and Jonathan Cooper. Of those, I only know Alex Singleton, who's average. So nothing to write home about. In the front seven, there's only John Franklin Myers. Yeah, and then in their secondary, obviously we all know they have Pat Surtain, who's arguably the best cornerback in the league. Their strong safety is PJ Locke, who I don't recognize. Their free safety is Brandon Jones, who I don't recognize. Their second cornerback is Riley Moss, and their nickelback is Jaquan McMillan. I don't recognize any of those guys. But I know that the Broncos' defense is pretty good. I know that's not just because of Pat Surtain. They're not mid-tier just because they have one good cornerback. That being said, that should be easy money for Justin Fields. Should be easy money. Maybe not for George Pickens, though. And then that just basically leaves me, because it would be too much time to go through everyone's teams. So let's look at myself. I guess I could go through Team Horse, because I don't really care about me. I could go through Team Horse for Cheyenne's matchup, just so he's aware of what to be worried about. All right. Jalen Hurts is against Atlanta, who we've already mentioned. He's probably not going to find it easy against Atlanta. That defense looked really good. Same with Devontae Smith. I'm not confident about the Eagles against Atlanta. Like, they are going to have a tough time. Damn it. It looks like most of these other teams are new, so I'm going to have to look them up real quick. Mark Andrews is against the Las Vegas Raiders, who he should have an easy time against, but I just don't know if I trust Mark Andrews, to be honest. Christian Kirk is being played for God knows what reason. He's against the Cleveland Browns, and so is Trevor Lawrence, so I might as well just look them up. Obviously, the Browns are known for having a pretty good defense because they have one of the best defensive players in the league in Myles Garrett. He's one of the two best edges along with TJ Watt. So they have Myles Garrett, Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, and Zadarius Smith on the line. We know Myles Garrett. Zadarius Smith is average. They have Jeremy Owasu-Koromoa, Jordan Hicks, and Devin Bush as their linebackers. All of those are solid players. And then they have Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome II, Martin Emerson Jr. as their cornerbacks. Denzel Ward is a really good cornerback. Greg Newsome is very good. I don't know Martin Emerson Jr. And then Grant Delpit at strong safety, Ronnie Hickman as free safety. Don't know either one of those guys. But overall, very solid defense. And obviously the addition of Myles Garrett. When you have a guy who's one of the top two in his position, that's always going to count for something. And that is going to be a threat to Trevor Lawrence the whole game. I mean, Myles Garrett's going to be able to get to him. So not high on Trevor Lawrence this week. Christian Kirk I would not be high on regardless of what defense he's playing because he barely plays in the game. But on a team that has Myles Garrett as well, he's fucked. And their nickelback is Greg Newsome. So anytime they play 3 wide receiver sets, Christian Kirk is going to be guarded by a really good cornerback. So he's fucked. He's not playable this week. He should not be played. Horse is going to fuck himself by playing Christian Kirk. Yeah, so then we have basically Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, and Garrett Wilson, and they are playing respectively Green Bay, Buffalo, and Tennessee. So let's do this real quick. Titans depth chart. So this will be Garrett Wilson. He is playing a base 3-4 defense with Sebastian Joseph Day, who's solid, Tavondre Sweat, and Jeffrey Simmons, who's solid. So pretty good line. Their linebackers are Arden Key, Kenneth Murray Jr., Jack Gibbons, and Harold Landry III. I don't know any of those linebackers. So the middle of their defense has a lot of holes, which would be really good for tight ends, but Garrett Wilson is not one of those. And then in their secondary, they have Snead went to this team. So they have Chidobe Awuzie as their cornerback, as one of their 2 cornerbacks. As one of their 3. So they have Chidobe Awuzie, L'Jarius Sneed, and Roger McCreary as their 3 cornerbacks. All 3 of them are good. L'Jarius Sneed is elite. He's a top 10 cornerback. Awuzie is right fringe top 10. He's right there. Roger McCreary is also solid, and that's their 3. He's their nickel back, and he's average. So to have an average cornerback as your 3rd cornerback is awesome. I didn't realize their pass defense was this good. And then on top of that, at free safety, they have Quandre Diggs, who's one of the better free safeties in the league. He's top 5 in there with Budda Baker and Jesse Bates. So that's a really good secondary. That's a really good pass defense. And they don't have a good pass rush, so the Jets might actually have a chance this game to be able to get the ball out and see what their offense really looks like. So I'd be maybe a little bit that's a hard one because, Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to pass the ball, I think. But Garrett Wilson is going to be guarded by L'Jarius Sneed, who all of last season completely shut down whatever wide receiver was against him. Completely shut down. So it's a hard one because he doesn't normally get to even have the opportunity to get the ball. But this is the worst team that you'd want to be. You're not going to be able to do much against L'Jarius Sneed. So I don't know if I'm high on Garrett Wilson this week. Devon Achane is against Buffalo. That's coming up pretty soon, actually, in 5 hours. Let's check it out. Looks like... Okay, so base 4-3, They have Greg Rousseau, Daquan Jones, Ed Oliver. I recognize all three of those people. They're all solid. So they have a pretty good run defense so far in the line. And then AJ Epinesa. I've heard his name, but I don't really know enough about him. They have Von Miller in a second on the depth chart. That's crazy. I didn't even know Von Miller still played. Anyway, pretty good line. That's going to be hard to run against. And we're talking about Devon Achane, right? Yeah. So, yeah, but Devon Achane also gets most of his. Oh, we'll see. And then they have Dorian Williams, Terrell Bernard, and Nicholas Morrow at linebackers. Okay, so their line is solid, but their front seven overall isn't that good because I don't know any of those three people. So the middle of their field is, if you can get past the line, and especially with it being Devon Achane, he can explode against these people. And then their secondary is Rasul Douglas, Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin, Christian Benford, and Taron Johnson. The only one I know DeMar Hamlin, obviously, who's playing free safety. He's not good. Taylor Rapp is playing strong safety. He was the Rams' strong safety and one of the worst players I've ever seen play. Rasul Douglas is a cornerback who is average. And then the other two I don't even know. So, wow, the Bills were supposed to have a good defense. They're dreadful this season. They're absolutely dreadful this season. It's just their line. The only good part of their defense is their line. Oh, man. Oh, the Dolphins are going to run ragged on these guys. Oh, shit. Yeah, no. Achane is a play with confidence. Jonathan Taylor is against the Green Bay Packers, who are apparently ranked as the 32nd worst. Oh, yeah, because Saquon Barkley went monkey on them. That is right. Okay. Well, who did Miami play? Or who did Buffalo play? They're 29th. Who did Buffalo play? Who did Buffalo play? I can't remember. Oh, well, whatever. Doesn't matter. Okay, Jonathan Taylor and the Green Bay Packers. Let's see. Let's see what we got. Looks like they play a base 4-3. They have... Oh, wait, hold on a sec. This is not the NFL official. Why is it doing this to me? Green Bay Packers depth chart. There we go. Now I have it. Okay, base 4-3. They've got Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, TJ Slatton, and Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary's good. I don't recognize the other three. Lucas Van Ness is on the bench behind Preston Smith, which is weird because Lucas Van Ness is good. So I don't know who this Preston Smith guy is, but he must be better than Lucas Van Ness. Quay Walker is okay. So in their linebackers, they have Quay Walker, Eric Wilson, Isaiah McDuffie. Quay Walker is really good. I don't recognize the other two. And then in their secondary, they have Jair Alexander, who's a top 10 cornerback, Javon Bullard, Xavier McKinney, Eric Stokes, and Kayshawn Nixon. I recognize McKinney. He's all right. Obviously, Jair is really good. Yeah, so this looks more like a pass defense than anything. Doesn't look like they're going to be very good at stopping the run. I would worry about the wide receiver one of whoever's playing the Packers because Jair Alexander is really good. But he's usually not one of those like matchup cornerbacks. Like he just plays based on play. So he's never like just on the wide receiver one. So who are we talking about? Jonathan Taylor. Oh, yeah. He's probably going to do pretty well against this team. He's a must play. And that about does it. So this was a really long episode, and I will not be doing that again. That was stupid. I should not have gone through all of that. But thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next episode. Good luck today, everybody. The Bills and the Dolphins are coming up in a few hours, and I think it'll be a good one. I think the Dolphins will probably destroy the Bills. All right. We'll see you next episode. Thank you very much.